In a moment, I'm going to make way for Graham Finlayson. Graham is based in Cunnamulla. He has a company that has a strong environmental focus. His session is going to be about scaling up regeneration in the rangelands. He was born and bred at Burriana in far west New South Wales, and I'm looking in the wings. He's eager and ready to go, but is his technology? That is the question. Good to go. All right, please welcome Graham Finlayson.
Everyone, and thanks for that. And thanks to the crew at the Rangelands conference for putting on such a great conference. And there's been incredibly diverse number of talks and a strong focus on regen ag. And my name's Graham Finlayson. I'm General Manager for SLM Australia. We've got some other projects overseas, but the Australian-based one is based basically around that Cunnamulla area. SLM is I work for a managed fund that is backed by investors, foreign investors. PKA, a Danish pension fund. They put $75 million into the project back in 2012. They had a small percentage of their funds go into agriculture, and another tiny bit of that goes into sustainability. So it was that sort of edge that got us over the line to get money. It's just a pity, really, that super funds in Australia don't invest a small percentage into agriculture. I think it'd be a game changer. I won't get right into that though. How did it all start? Tony Lovell did a holistic management course with a guy called Bruce Ward, who's was one of the most experienced HM educators in Australia. And straight away they could see that there was a opportunity to maybe get some investment involved in that and scale it up and do what Bruce was talking about in teaching on a large scale. They could not get funding in Australia, so they went over to Europe and were successful in a couple of competitions and things and got their name out a bit, linked up with Paul McMahon and his UK-based partners, and they eventually got PKA over the line. They probably came to our place at Brewarrina. We managed a tourism adventure as well, and we were basically cell grazing. We'd been through all the RCS stuff for years, and they used to stay with us and show investors around and then go again, and probably did that for 5 or 6 years before they got someone to tick the box. And unfortunately, Bruce Ward became ill right at the start of it and passed away. And so Tony got my wife and I involved at that point, and it's grown from there. Unfortunately, Tony himself's passed away since, and I hope I'm not next in line, but it's a little bit of a pity because we've had a pretty tough run, and it would have been great for them to see what's happening on the ground now. They really came up with a simple plan. They got the money, but their plan was quite simple. Basically, buy grazing country that's inherently degraded or poorly capitalised, not too far north, too far south, outside the cropping high value area, but inside the truly dry country, which is a little ironic because it did stay dry for us for a hell of a long time, as it has for a lot of people. Put people in place that could be trained to understand our different management. It is quite different. There's been quite a few talks at this conference, which I was ecstatic to hear, promoting more regenerative agricultural practices, and that's fantastic. Develop wire and water that can handle mobs of 3,000 to 4,000 cattle in a mob. They had a very strong focus on that sort of principle more than anything, like to change the ecology. Develop a large-scale beef master breeding program. Tony had been involved with Lassiter's in the States, and my wife and I had been there a couple of times, so that was another sort of interest we had. And then basically, double the carrying capacity and halve the cost of production. It was a pretty simple plan. Of course, simple plans don't always work out, and we've been challenged pretty viciously by all of that. So where is it all, and what is the scale? We're basically from just out of Blackhall down to north of Burke. Padua Park at Cunnamulla is 44,000 hectares. Willacora is 49,000 hectares. Amenda's 43,000. Garrowin 79,000. Carolee 71,000 hectares. We still have all those places. The Quilpie country has been sold mainly as a profit driver. It was we hadn't developed it much, and we'd leased it out, and it was too good to pass up. Unfortunately, we did sell Listle Downs at Blackhall as well, which was one I would have liked to have kept. It was fantastic, thanks. Basically, is designed around controlling grazing pressure and doing it at scale. And you probably couldn't, none of us could have done a lot of this stuff 50 years ago. Poly pipe and GPS, electric fencing, it's all made this possible. And then hear other talkers speaking about walkover weighing and other technologies that are really going to help change things going forward as well. A lot of that was put up. You have over 4,000 kilometres of single wire fencing. A lot of backpackers worked with us, which we wouldn't be able to get now. And water systems obviously are critical. To do that to manage those sort of mobs, we had to have good water, and we did put very, very good water systems in. This is a quick run through of the places we have down there and how it's designed. It's a pretty standard cell grazing type system with a centre water point. Each of those smaller paddocks there are 200 hectares or 500 acres. So most water points have got 4,000 acres around them with a double cup and saucer water point in the middle. That's the Emenda. That's the two of those blocks combined, which we run as two separate units. That shows the water system there. That orange line is all of the pipeline system. It's quite extensive. Fantastic water in all of this country down there. Fantastic artesian water. It just makes it all possible as well. That's Garrowin. That's more of a mulga type block. We've got a big variety of country really, which is a great advantage as well. And that's another block that is at Cunnamulla as well, but we just fenced it a little bit differently, utilising more of the 6-wire fences that were originally there, and it's got several different pump stations on it, which is another advantage. And that's the block in New South Wales, just down below the border, and it's an odd shape, and it's a big chunk of country as well, and it varies from open Mitchell grass to spinifex country. It's got a real variety on it. That was the easy part, basically, setting all of that up. It was a hell of a big task, but it was, it's what's happened in the meantime. There's been a few challenges, we could say. Weather's been the obvious one. We stepped in at the end of all those good seasons, basically, and we had very few years or very few periods in those years where we got out of that bottom 5% decile. The grazing pressure externally from kangaroos and goats, of course, goats are a profit driver as well, but especially kangaroos have been absolutely enormous. I'd never seen anything like it. We get quite a few kangaroos sort of north of Brewarrina where we are, and they were just huge numbers there. Matching stocking rate to carrying capacity, just getting that right. There was a little bit of a wrong focus on too much emphasis on the ecology and pushing the animals, and getting those things in sync is just so critical, and I'm just so glad to hear other speakers talk about the same thing. It is one of the most critical things. Management policies for the company, it really was a new idea and a new company, and a very small management team. And we still are. We're even smaller management team now. There wasn't enough clear, articulated, written policies and structure around what we did and how we did it. So we've developed that as we've gone along, and it's we're in a much better place now. People have been the single biggest issue, no doubt about, or challenge. And it took us a while to really raise that bar, and people that don't make that level fall out of the system, and people that do come in, and we've got a fantastic team now. I couldn't be more proud of the management crew that we've got on all those places at the moment. And being different, of course, doing something different into a pretty traditional community and areas, it brings its own challenges. And the whole corporate idea of corporates, taking people out of the system, and it's a valid argument. I've argued against that stuff myself. But at least with what we do, we can't do it without people. So this is part of the challenge of kangaroos. Looking at this slide, the one on the top left there with a bit of grass, that was inside that old tank, that old gal tank that was laying in the paddock, and that other grass plant up in the top right was in a paddock that we were going into with cattle. And that was probably should have been a 3-foot high grass plant. It was smashed down with kangaroos, and that bottom right picture shows just what the numbers were like, really, up against the exclusion fencing. There was just tens and tens of thousands. But saying all that, we've had a lot of positives. We have had enough practice. We've been through some challenges. We've learned a lot. We've just learned an enormous amount about how we need to do things and not do things, and that's ongoing. This last 18 months has been great. We've been able to build up cattle numbers and get things working and trial a few different things, and that's been fantastic. We've been able to improve the ground cover, improve the biodiversity on a lot of that country, despite those bad years. It was, there's not much you can do about it not raining for 7 or 8 years, but basically my philosophy is around we minimise the damage, and then be prepared to do something and get going when you get the opportunity. But you can't get blood out of a stone. Policies and management's been great, really, because we have had that small management team and ability to make decisions. I'm not answering 250 people. We've got a close connectedness with the team on the ground. We've been on the ground ourselves a lot. We've lived and breathed it ourselves. And the guys above us, they back us to do what we think needs to be done. Stock handling's been fantastic. Great feedback from agents and clients on any cattle that we sell, and it's a real, it's a critical part of cell grazing, getting that stuff right. But it's just so much. There's so many other benefits around it as well for the people and animals. And as I said before, just getting the right people in place, it's been fantastic. Just ecologically, though, on some of it, this is at Garrowan, the mulga block, basically south of Eulo. These pictures were taken when the rolling rainfall was 79 millimetres, and those plants inside that, it's only wiregrass, and I look at it and think, well, what about all the other softer, better grasses that would have been here once? A lot of these grasses are the ones that are just hanging on. But that was 79 millimetres. Inside that, a lot of the pressure there was more rabbits than kangaroos, actually, but it was still green. That's what I couldn't go over. As dry as it was, that plant was still green. It was unbelievable. This is something Tony Lovell used to like to do with one of our managers' meetings. We'd turned up with a big heap of these little pink flags. So we went out to that spot and said, well, why are they the only perennial grass plants? So we walk around with flags each, and so any tiny little grass plant we could find, we'd put a flag in, and it just changes your view on things. You look at that and you think, well, actually, there's so much potential there, and that's that area now. So on the left, back when it was dry, we've had pretty good rain there at Garrowan, but the rolling rainfall is 240, the long-term average is 340, so we're a long way behind. That paddock, Sandy sent me those pictures through last week. 2 weeks ago, we grazed that country with a pretty fair mob of cattle and took 12 stock days per hectare out. That's 2 stock days per hectare less than the long-term average for a whole year, and that's the condition they left it in. Even where there's not litter on the ground's busted up, it's a lot more chance of soaking up rain, and we're pretty excited about that country and what's going to happen there, and how much grass we're getting back in under those trees. It's fantastic. This is, the big variation in country we've got. This is Chiln Creek flood-out country coming off the Warrego, south of Cunnamulla. SL4 water point, we actually grazed in January, and that's at the water point. So you can, that the grass just explodes out of where the cattle have been in those densities. And the photo on the right is actually looking along one of the one-wire fences. Great bulk there. Dusty and Christy sent me through these pictures a couple of days ago. This was only a recent graze, so we're back through that country again, taking off. I think Dusty and Christy are there at the conference, so you can question them as much as you like. That'd be great. But I think 32 to 35 stock days per hectare, on top of the 32 earlier this year in country that's long-term average is 22. So it's pretty exciting stuff, really. That's another shot that was earlier this year, January, when I was helping them move and put the drone up for a look, and that's just the cattle going through that water point. It's quite spectacular, and that's on the ground with the cattle coming out into that feed and pretty well loving it. Back to people, this is the crew we've got on the ground there, and all these management units, and all of their kids. You can't do what we want to do, what we are doing, without people, and without people that love it, and without people that aren't interested in what they're doing and watching what's happening with the animals and the ground cover and the whole lot. And that's what excites me about it. As a business, we've tried to get in training. We've relied heavily on RCS and Jim Lindsay for stock handling, and we were just in the process of kicking that off again in the last couple of months before this whole lockdown thing happened. So hopefully we'll get stuck into that within the next couple of months, and retrain and train up some new people as well. This is some pictures of just some landscape pictures of the variety of landscape as well, and the design and how the structure's set out. It's very simple, really, very simple. SLM, this is our vision. It's a foreign-based company, but they put the money in. They're just backing what we want to do, and they can only take a fraction of the profits home. So we just treat it like our own, and we're serious about what we want to do and how we want to improve things and why we do what we want to do. And it's interesting, if you do all this stuff right, it's actually what the markets want as well. And I think that's going to become more and more the case. You're going to have markets, paying for this sort of stuff, and it's starting to happen, and it's happening with the carbon markets already. So I think biodiversity credits and landscape steward credits and these sort of things, flowing through even to the animal and the quality of the product we produce, I think it's a great way for us to go forward. And I guess, especially with being in the run, there's often been this sense of, we're tough and we hang on to what we've got and we try and protect what we've got, but there's a real abundancy versus scarcity mentality that we have to get past. I think, it's no good just stopping the damage. We've got to turn it around and improve things, and there's enormous potential for us to do that. There's not much different in Australia to America to Mexico to Africa. I've been fortunate to go to all sorts of places where they are using this sort of management, and these Kruins in South Africa, they probably started in the early 60s, late 60s, some of the earliest guys to look at HM, and I think that it speaks for itself, really. That's about all for me. So I've probably gone through that a little bit quicker than but thanks to everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to be able to share our story with the conference.